The living entity is the self. The spark of life is the self, the true self. The respect goes to the spiritual dimension of every one of us. And then amongst those that are humans, there's species that aren't human. Respect goes to them also because there's spark of life within. But amongst humans, then there's gradations. Those that have two legs, human. Those that are civilized, there's some that aren't civilized that have two legs. And so forth and so on, and going up and up and up and up and up and up to gradations of those with human forms that then exhibit the true nature of the soul, which is to be in their relationship with the Supreme Soul. So most respect for everyone. In the afternoon, this part 2, we heard even to an ant. Respect anything that's alive is to be respected. And even things that are not alive, like material nature, respect nature. There's nice teachings in this regard. It's to neglect respect is a fault. It's a blemish. It's a symptom of bad character, and it makes disturbance in society when you have bad characters roaming around doing bad character things in speech and conduct and disrespect of different kinds, different degrees. So in the part 2, we discussed a little bit about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So those of you that are newer, is anybody is in the newer category that would like to hear something about who is Krishna? Or we're good with who is Krishna? We're good. Okay. I've been in audiences where people would like to hear something. So Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. And after Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, the Kurukshetra battle took place, 18 days, and it was over. And many other things happened, and finally Krishna departed. Krishna remained on earth performing pastimes for approximately 125 years. The time came for his departure. And after his departure, there's a little juncture of time, because time, according to Vedic picture, time moves in cycles. It's yugas, ages of mankind. And from the time that Krishna appeared, there was a little juncture before the next, kind of like sunrise, sunset is like a juncture. Sandhi, it's called in Sanskrit. So after Krishna departed, he began to consider, I gave the teachings in Bhagavad Gita by which people could be happy instead of struggling and not being happy as they could be, should be, would be, because they're spiritual and they're meant to be happy, spiritually happy. But this next yuga after my departure becomes the bad one, the dark one, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the one that we're in now. And people won't have the capacity to understand these nice teachings, therefore what to do. And many other things were considered. He decided there couldn't be anything better than I'll come myself. So Krishna came. In this dark age, to teach what he taught in Bhagavad Gita by his precept, by his words, and by his example. Two things, prachara and achara in Sanskrit, by his words and by his conduct. show by example how to live your life in a way that leads to happiness and perfection, spiritual perfection. So we discussed in part 2 how those same principles of maryada, or good conduct, was exemplified in his pastimes, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Krishna himself teaching how to live your life in a proper way, or not just proper, in the spiritually elevated manner, to the stage of perfection. That's what we heard in part 2. That's like mini summary. And now it's part 3. And some of you that are newer, you may need an introduction to who is Lord Ramachandra, because that's what we're going to be speaking about. Lord Ramachandra, like Krishna, Ramachandra is an avatar. It's a nice word. They made a movie called Avatar. But they took it from the Sanskrit word avatar, which means one who descends. Avatar, from the spiritual realm into this realm, the Lord may make sometimes, from time to time, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. From time to time, Krishna comes and manifests one of his unlimited forms. So one of those beautiful unlimited forms is Ramachandra. And Ramachandra has a title, or he's known by Maryada Purushottama. Uttama means topmost. Purusha means supreme, or the enjoyer of his material nature, his creation. The topmost person who shows good conduct. Maryada Purushottama. So that's what we're going to be speaking about this evening. Examples from Ramayana, which is the epic, like big epic, that tells the story of Ramachandra's life. And I'm going to take some passages from that Ramayana that illustrate how Ramachandra showed ideal conduct, Maryada Purushottama, in the best possible way. Through regulation, Maryada means etiquette, but it also means regulation. So those who live their life consistently from beginning to end, every day throughout their life, that's regulation. And we're practicing that life. So we're practitioners, or sadhakas, practicing with regulation how to live our life properly, or in a way that the purpose of human life is achieved, that is awakening our original spiritual consciousness to the fullest degree, or love of God to the fullest degree. So that's our topic, along the line of, particularly along the line of respect. Because the very first part 1 was, as far as Vaishnava etiquette is concerned, or the behavior of someone that's a devotee of the Supreme, it begins with respect. We'll say it negatively: without respect, you don't have a person with good etiquette. Sorry, it's just, it may be perfumed, but it's not good etiquette without respect. So within Ramayana, there are some examples of etiquette that are shown towards Guru. In the painting here, there's 2 boys. The darker one, that's Ramachandra. And the lighter one, that's one of his brothers, named Lakshmana. So a great sage, that's that fellow with the big beard, that's Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni, long history of who he was and how he got to be Vishwamitra Muni. But he was a celebrated personality of his time during the time of Lord Ramachandra. And he was living in the forest with a little hermitage, a group of other renunciates, practicing devotion to the Supreme. And where they were staying, there was a mystical personality and her two sons. And their business was disrupting the austerities and sacrifices and pure activities of the sages. So Vishwamitra Muni, he was very powerful. He could have just like zapped them with his mystic power, but he didn't. He went to the palace of the king, because the king is to give protection to everyone, and certainly to give protection to the brahmanas, and certainly to give protection amongst the sages amongst the brahmanas. So Vishwamitra Muni, pictured here with the big beard, he came to the palace in Ayodhya, where King Dasarath and his 4 sons were residing. And he, as soon as he arrived, the king stood. But he's the king, or he's the emperor of the world. When the sage came, he's standing to respect the sage, Vishwamitra. And I don't know what brought you here, but you come for some reason. The answer is yes, whatever it is you want. Blank check. You fill in the amount. Anything you want. Very good. I want your 2 sons to come with me to deal with this wicked demon that's defiling our sacrificial ceremonies. My sons, they're so young, and he was, you need help. I'm a mighty king. I can take care of. No, I want your sons. Not you. I want your sons. Not your armies. I want your sons. The king practically fainted. But they're young and they're tender and they're not trained, and I want your sons. And then the minister had kind of like whispered in the ear of the king, saying, say yes. If you make Vishwamitra angry, you got a big problem. He has a benevolent reason, not a malevolent, a benevolent reason for wanting your 2 sons. Trust him. He could deal with this problem himself. He wants to do some favor for your sons. Say yes. So he said yes. I'm keeping it simple. The dialogue is fantastic, but just the storyline goes like this. And so there goes Vishwamitra off to the forest with these 2 boys with their bow and arrows to deal with this mystical personality and take care of the mystical personality and her 2 sons that are disrupting their sacrifices and their austerities. So these 2 boys, they weren't yet trained. They weren't trained in many ways. They were trained in character, and they exhibited that character by, according to Valmiki Ramayana, they followed Vishwamitra for 12 miles. No, the measurements were in yojanas, but they traveled saying nothing. They didn't know where they were going. Valmiki, the author of Ramayana, says these are 12-year-old boys. For 1.5 yojanas, or 12 miles, they were completely silent. Now, little boy, 12-year-old boys, are they going to be silent for days? and say nothing. Like, hey, where are we going? Where are we? What's next? Can you clue us in? Help. They just remained silent out of respect. This is the topic. Etiquette begins with respect. So they knew this much. Don't speak unless spoken to. Especially with seniors, especially with guru. And so they said nothing. They just tagged along, followed behind him wherever he went. And I'll read. The appreciation of the acharyas for Ram and Lakshman's guru nishtha is that unlike restless 12-year-old boys, princes, who otherwise might be curious, bored, or wondering where they were going, these two followed their guru unquestioningly. They trusted him. Wherever he's taking us, it's good. And after some time, he turned around. The Vishvamitra turned around and looked at the two boys and smiled. Because he understood they were being respectful. And it's not normal little 12-year-old boys being like that. So they were observing a service attitude, that according to the language of Ramayana, Shusha, a service attitude. Now, they were ready to do whatever he wanted, whatever he wanted them to do, he would tell them. Until then, don't speak until spoken to. And so he smiled and acknowledged their character and their respect for him. And then he began to explain where they're going and what's next. And to ready themselves, because they were getting in the vicinity of where this demoness was, Tataka. So here's another little drawing that shows the same. Now, that principle is a principle that applies to us today. Here's a nice example. A nice example is one of Prabhupada's disciples pictured here. It's a photograph. Her name is Yamuna Dasi. Yamuna Dasi was a young girl until she became a devotee, and then she became a young woman, and then she became a mature woman. And you look at the intensity with which she's looking at Prabhupada. She became very dear to Prabhupada because of how the Guru Nishtha that she had. And one of the things that she did, among many things, she was a great singer. I'll tell you a little story. Something she told me. Because my service and her service were in two different realms. But once upon a time, we attended a japa retreat together. And so she just took the opportunity. She's very personal. She said, may I sit? I'm a sannyasi, and she's a lady. May I, I've heard of you, but we've never met. May I spend some time during our lunch? Sure. And she started describing her relationship with Prabhupada and some of her experiences with Prabhupada and with the devotees. And I said, I only know you from your record. She made recordings. She was angelic singer, it's like from the heavenly realm. Fantastic voice. And I said, that's how I know you. I don't know you so much other than that. Then that hit her little button, and she said, there was a time when there were 6 of us, these 6 young Western devotees, 3 couples, husband, wife, young, very young, like in their early 20s, young. They went to London to start a Hare Krishna temple in London. And lo and behold, many things happened, but they made acquaintance with George Harrison because at that time He was a celebrity, and he amongst the four Beatles was very interested in spirituality, particularly interested in Indian spirituality, and particularly interested in music and mantra meditation. So that was the in, and they got to know him, and so forth. And what happened in course of time, Jamuna was expert at cooking, so they brought prasadam when the Beatles did recordings at certain times. They brought the refreshments. She was a good cook, not a great cook. So they really liked her cooking. Therefore, they really liked her. And she, in course of time, they had kirtan, like we have kirtan. But she sang so superlatively. She didn't use that language, but I know that she does. So George said, "You sing so wonderfully. If you like, I can make you famous. I know how to do it." If you like, I can make you famous. I know how to do it. And so she said to me, I said, "George, let me think about it." The next day she said, "No thanks. I don't want that lifestyle. I don't want to live a life of a celebrity and music star. No thanks." He said, "Very well, then let's do this. Let's make a recording in our recording studio." So they made a recording. On one side was Govindam prayers with Jamuna singing. The other side was the Hare Krishna mantra with Jamuna singing. And it became a number one, at that time it was 45 RPM, and it was the number one seller in all of Europe for the summer. She described like this. So she was really good at singing, and she was really good at cooking. Some of you may know. If you don't know, it's good to know. She published a cookbook that's like that thick. Jamuna Cookbook, it's called. And Prabhupada taught her everything, because she's just an American kid. And Prabhupada taught her everything. Here's another story she told me. Once Prabhupada asked her, there's a certain kind of rice that's very thin and very fine. See if you can find it. They were in India. So she found a place that had really thin, fine grain rice. Expensive. Not a certain kind of basmati rice. I can't remember the name. So she bought a bunch. She cooked it. Prabhupada took one grain, put it on the tip of his tongue, tasted it, and told her exactly the kind of rice it was. She was astonished. Prabhupada's senses were so refined. All of his senses, because they're under Krishna's control. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. So she was Prabhupada's cook. And at a certain point in time, she had to take on some other service. So her cooking service was transferred to somebody else. Those of you that have been around a while, you know who Giriraj Maharaj is. So Giriraj Maharaj wrote a letter to a female devotee asking Jamuna to write a letter to this female devotee who was going to become Prabhupada's cook in Bombay. Because Giriraj Maharaj was in charge of, like the president of the Bombay temple for some period of time. They had to change cooks. So Jamuna was to train the new cook how to cook for Prabhupada. So here we go. This is from that letter that Jamuna wrote. When you come to Bombay, you will have to be like the cook I was for Srila Prabhupada, bring the prasad for respecting and leave unspoken to. That was the norm. Unless he gave some instruction how to make adjustment in the cooking, or unless he made occasional comment. This is to speak when spoken to, and otherwise you just do service. Giriraj Swami asked me to instruct you, so I'm passing on this to you. It's a small aspect of classical teacher-apprentice mood. Serve in silence unless spoken to. While I never took a teacher mood with you, this is a rich rasa to explore on different levels. The point is, what Ram and Lakshman taught in relation to Vishwamitra Muni, it's still a principle. And Jamuna learned the principle. Jamuna passed the principle on to, I don't know who this other replacement cook was. But it's Maryada, or proper etiquette, being displayed by Ram and Lakshman. They also displayed proper etiquette towards the Bhagavatas. Bhagavatas means, in relation to Bhagavan, there's two. There's the book, Bhagavata, and there's the person, Bhagavata. So in Ramchandra's Leela, there's this situation where Lakshmana, and you see in the painting, Ram and Lakshman were brought by Hanuman, pictured here on the far right with his club next to him. He was sent by Sugriva, who's the king, but in seclusion up on Rishamukh Hill, and he wanted Hanuman, his minister, to go check out these two wearing ascetic garb, but carrying bows and arrows. Ascetics don't wear bows and arrows. Who are they? Is it friend or foe? Are they friend or foe? Go check it out. Hanuman brought them back. Friend. And so here they are, establishing friendship. Hanuman is watching. Sugriva, the king, the fellow with the crown, a Vanar, a monkey, warrior, king, he's shaking hands. They took vows of friendship with one another when they first met, right off the bat, because Sugriva trusted Hanuman's judgment and he's introducing them. On two occasions during his initial meetings with Sri Ram and Lakshman, Sugriva honored Sri Ram with a seat made of flowering branches of a shal tree. He plucked another branch for himself too. In both meetings, he failed to offer a seat to Lakshmana. Disrespect. Failure to offer to respect is disrespect. Hanuman quickly plucked branches and offered it to Lakshman respectfully. There's consequences that came about as a result of this disrespect, which Ram overlooked because he accepted Sugriva's friendship, and that was the platform of their exchange. But even where there's friendship, if there's a superior person who's your friend, you respect them. You show demonstrations of respect. Like, Western culture, offering a seat is not a formality. In Vedic culture, it's a formality. Someone comes, you offer a place to sit, some water, some kind words, 3 things. Just culture. Anyone knows that. From Vedic background, everyone knows that. Failure is disrespect, and there's consequences for disrespect. Sugriva met some consequences. And those 2 fellows behind him, that's Minda and Dvidvida, they both specifically, Dvidvida whispered in Sugriva's ear, pay attention to Ram, he's the one. Lakshman isn't so important. So the offense was to Lakshman. And there was consequences for Dvidvida that came later. A whole other story. And it can be said, It's rightly so. Service to Bhagavan includes service to the Bhagavatas. Bhagavatas means those who are in relation to Bhagavan, or the devotees who are serving Bhagavan. They're Bhagavatas. And one might say, as far as Bhagavan is concerned, even greater than service to him is service to the devotee of Bhagavan. This is a Vaishnava principle. It's a Vaishnava etiquette. We serve the devotees, the Bhagavatas, because they're dear to Bhagavan. Prabhupada gives the example. It's a very good example. Love me, love my dog. He gives the example. Supposing you're walking in a park, and you see a big man, Mr. So-and-so, big man. And you're a nobody, so you don't have the prerogative to just walk up to Mr. Big Man and say, "Hello, sir, how are you doing?" That's not so appropriate. But if he's walking his dog, you go pat his dog and scratch him under the chin, and you made a friend with the big man. It's a very simple example, and it's true. The approach to the big man is through those who are dear to the big man. His children or his dog or his, underlings. Those who are dependent upon him, respect them. And you've made friendship with the big man. Or Bhagavan, the biggest. Then there's another nice example in Ramayana, how to exhibit etiquette towards those who show us wrong. In this painting, we know who that is. On the left, it's Mantra. And on the right, that's Kaikeyi. And Mantra, standing on the balcony of the palace, she looked out and she saw this commotion going on. She wanted to know from others what's going on. Oh, didn't you hear? The coronation of Ram is going to happen today. Oh, no. She scurried inside. Mantra was a hunchback lady, kind of her crooked in body and crooked in nature, both. And she was the maid servant of Kaikeyi, and she persuaded, without all the back and forth, she persuaded Kaikeyi to stop the coronation. Do you remember when, my dear Mistress Kaikeyi, when Dasarath made a promise to you, you saved his life without all the details, and he promised you he would give you 2 boons, anything you want, and you said, there's nothing I need, I'll ask later. Remember that? Now is the time to ask. And here's what you should ask. 1, Ram will not become the king. My son Bharata will become the king. Go ask Dasarath for that boon. The second one, his eldest son, Ram, should be banished to the forest for 14 years. So there. And there was big chaos. He couldn't say it. Ram came, and Kaikeyi said it. She just repeated the words of Mantra. She got duped by Mantra. But she was the one that said it, so here she's taking off her necklace, her ornament, and giving it to her maid servant, Mantra. So sure enough, Ram went to the forest for 14 years. That's a long time to go into the forest. He didn't go alone. He went with 2 people. One, his wife, and the other was Lakshman. So there's a nice passage. He never said a bad word to anyone at any time ever about this bad activity of Kaikeyi. He never spoke it. He never felt it. Being banished to the forest for 14 years when you're supposed to become the king is like atrocious. Without mentioning names, some other people would really not go for it at all. On the 13th year, approximately, there was a statement made by Lakshman. Lakshman is there holding some fruits that he gathered in the forest to serve to Ram and Sita. And he was thinking, I'm with you, but our other brother Bharata, he's not. He's back in Ayodhya. And who knows the grief that he's undergoing in separation. At least we're in the forest, but I have your association, and I'm fully satisfied with, doesn't matter the austerities and hardships. But his hardship is he has no association with you. Poor Bharata. He must be suffering very greatly. And meditating upon Bharata, he started to speak some unkind words about Bharata's mother, Kaikeyi. And Ramchandra cut him off. Said, don't speak about Kaikeyi. Speak only about Bharata. I mean, don't fault find. There may be justice in this was a wrongdoing. And you can say, this was a wrongdoing. But Ram wouldn't hear it. He didn't allow him to speak. He never spoke, and he didn't allow Lakshman to speak. No hurt feelings, please. No blaming some other person. Similarly, in this connection, there's a very nice story that's in Krishna's pastimes. The painting on the right shows an event that happened where a king, very charitable king, had the practice of giving cows in charity to brahmanas. Kings do that. So he would liberally give cows and cows and many cows and many cows and many cows. And one occasion, the cow that he gave to a brahmana wandered back into the herd. He gave the very same cow to brahmana number 2. And when brahmana number 1 saw that he gave his cow to brahmana number 2, he became very angry. Not at the brahmana number 2, but at the king. Look what you've done. You've given you've given a gift to a brahmana, and then you've taken it back and given it to another brahmana. You can't do that. This is very bad. I curse you. You become a lizard. Ooh. And the brahmana's curse happened. And that's what happened over there. This was just prior to the time of Krishna. So Krishna was with the cowherd boys in the forest, and he saw, because he knew he's omniscient, down at the bottom of the well there's this lizard. So Krishna extended his arm, because he can do that. Boarding house reach, he just reached to the bottom of the well, touched the lizard, picked the lizard up, and then the painting on the right. He pulled him out of the well, and then from the lizard body came the cursed brahmana. He liberated the brahmana who became a lizard by the curse of another brahmana. And when Prabhupada narrates this story, he narrates it with this lesson. Don't blame the instrument of your karma. Sometimes, maybe too often, but sometimes at least, sometimes bad things happen to us. And often there's an instrument of that bad thing, and we blame the instrument of that bad thing. You're to blame for this, and pointing the fingers, or at least in the mind going rah 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 rah. It happens. Maybe you're fortunate it's never happened to you, but I know it happens. So the lesson is, don't blame the instrument of your own karma. Rather, accept if there's misfortune, there's something back there that's the cause of the misfortune. At least in terms of worldly behavior, good karma, good result. Bad karma, bad result. You cause pain and suffering for others, you're going to get that pain and suffering that comes back to you. The lesson is, don't give cows in charity to Brahmana because you might have a mishap. Give cows in charity to brahmanas, or give gifts in charity, give whatever you have in charity to brahmanas, because it's pleasing to Krishna. That's why we do. Krishna likes when the brahmanas are maintained, because the brahmanas, they don't maintain us financially, but the brahmanas maintain us spiritually. And that's very dear to Krishna. Those who maintain spiritually, maintain others, that's dear to Krishna. So their charity is given to them. Not only to them, charity in principle. That's another example of Maryada Purushottama, of Lord Ramachandra. Here's another, a very nice example, very easy to understand example. On the left, it shows Hanuman being bound with ropes, because Hanuman, for your information, a group of us will be going to Sri Lanka and hearing all about Sundarakanda, for those of you that know a little bit about the background. Sundarakanda is all about like 3.5 days of Hanuman's life. A whole kanda dedicated to him, maybe 36 hours, whatever it is. He went all the way across the ocean to carry a message to Sita. He carried Ram's ring to show Sita, I'm representing your beloved Lord Ramachandra. Here's his ring. And many things happened. And after securing Sita's confidence that Ramchandra would come and redeem her, she became somewhat pacified. It's very, very difficult residing in Ravana's kingdom. He told at the end of 30 days, if I don't submit to him, he'll come and eat me, cut me up and chop me up and make me his breakfast. Ravana's not a nice guy. Before that happens, if Ram doesn't come, I'm going to enter into fire and take my life. So Hanuman's got to hurry up and get back and redeem Sita with Ram doing at the head. So, but he decides to teach a lesson. Those of you that are familiar with Ramayana, you know the story, the history. He went into this spectacularly beautiful garden and made a mess. He took trees and broke off trees and took an iron rod and just like whacking, just mutilating the garden. And many things happened. Finally, the painting on the left, he was tied up because he wanted to see Ravana. He wanted to come before Ravana and take a look at him. Like, what did he look like? So he had 10 heads, and it's something very awesome to look at. But Ravana decided that he should be killed. He's a spy on behalf of Ramachandra. He should be killed. Now that's the next slide. This is Hanuman being brought before the 10-headed Ravana. This is Vibhishan offering his obeisances at the feet of Ravana. And he ordered that he be killed, but Vibhishan spoke against it because Vibhishan was an emblem of virtue, even in this bad place in Ravana's kingdom. And it's against the codes of Dharma. You don't kill a messenger. You can punish him, you can cause him discomfort, but you can't kill him. So that's where it was decided that he would burn his tail. And with his tail burning, he set the whole of Lanka on fire. That's how Hanuman was treated as the messenger from Ram. And then once Ravana knew that the whole army was on the other side of the sea, he sent a spy. The spy's name was Sukha. Sukha had mystic power. He could assume different shapes. He assumed the shape of a bird. And the purpose of Sukha's going, according to Valmiki Ramayana, was to convey a message to the monkey king Sugriva, basically saying, Sugriva, why are you doing this? I haven't done anything to harm you. You should give up this idea, you and your hordes of warriors, very terrible warriors. Give it up. And, go back home, and let's have peace instead of war, kind of a message. So Sukha was supposed to convey that message. Somehow, Sukha's identity was discovered. They grabbed him. And once they grabbed him, they started beating him and harassing him and threatening him. And there was this big clamor. Ram came along and saw what was going on. He said, stop. What's going on? They said, he's a spy sent by Ravana. And Ram said, that's okay. Let's give him royal treatment. And then Ram spoke to him and said, if you want to see my armies, I'll give you a tour personally. And you can take that message back to Ravana. Just see the massive size of the army. Ravana, give back Sita. And everything will be nice. You can deliver that message. Come, I'll show you personally. And then Sugriva spoke. The king, monkey king, spoke and said, this is from Ramayana, Ravana should be informed that I am neither his friend nor his well-wisher. Indeed, he has formed an enmity with Ram and is thus my sworn enemy as well. For stealing Sita from Ram, the demon deserves death at my hands, and that he shall receive in due course. So Sukha went back and gave the message to Ravana, who was furious. He wanted to put his messenger to death, but he was spared because he was just delivering a message, relaying a message back from Sugriva. Then Ravana decided, I'm going to send 2 other missionary spies, intelligence agents, and check out the scene. I want to understand the vastness of his army. And they came, and they were detected. And they were tormented and brutalized, and once again, Ram intervened. These names, again, it doesn't say if it's the same Sukha, but Sukha and Sarana. These 2, just rather than assuming the form of a bird, they assumed the form of monkeys, monkey warriors. And they were detected. But they were treated with respect because of Ram's intervention. So Maryada Purushottama. Now this isn't normal behavior in wartime. We know what's going on in wartime these days, and it's not like this. But Vaishnava Sadachar, again this word Sadachar means good conduct. This is a photograph of one devotee in the backside, that's Gauranga, he's a brahmachari, and he's giving a tour of their Govardhan Echo village in Maharashtra to Lokanath Maharaj, who's a sannyasi holding his danda, pointing out this and that. And in the presence of superiors, you don't speak much about yourself. Certainly don't speak highly about yourself. And in Ramayana, this very same conduct was, in this case, shown by Hanuman. Because to get to Lanka in Sundarakanda, and there were obstacles and obstacles and obstacles, and more obstacles, and then meeting Sita, and then the whole event. It's a whole kanda, a whole big section, very large section. And when he came back, he narrated all of what happened to his friends. But later, when he gave a report to Ramachandra, he didn't say anything to Ramchandra. He is not bragging about his heroism. He's just sharing with them, this happened, and then that happened, and then the other thing happened. His burning of Lanka, and he was captured, and Simhika, and everything. But when he went before Ram, he just gave Ram the news that he wanted to know. That is, Sita is safe. Here's the layout of Lanka. You have 30 days to rescue her because of the threat of Ravana. And he made no mention at all, the practical things that he needed to know, but nothing about his heroism. And that's Vaishnava etiquette. In this case, exhibited by Hanuman. Then there's another scene. Many of you that know Ramayana, these well-known scenes. The virtuous brother of Ravana was Vibhishan. Vibhishan tried and tried again unsuccessfully to persuade his elder brother to be virtuous and return Sita. Don't bring destruction to the entire kingdom of the Rakshasas. Their Sri Lanka will be lost. Ravana was furious. Vibhishan left with his ministers, and he came before Sugriva, asking Sugriva, please let me know, please convey a message to Ram. I want to take shelter of him. Please ask him if he'll accept me. So Sugriva carried the message to Ramachandra. And he didn't just convey the message, he gave his opinion. Don't do it. Because XYZ. And then Ramchandra, being a leader, he asked others, what was your opinion? What is your opinion? What is your opinion? And they all had basically diverse opinions, but don't do it. Reasons were different. And silent in this whole episode was Hanuman, not speaking until spoken to. And then Ram turned to Hanuman and said, what's your opinion? What should be done? There's a very long section where one by one, now, there are persons who, by many considerations, they're his superior. So you don't speak against the superior. That's a violation of etiquette. But he spoke about what was spoken by those superiors and pointed out the holes in the bucket. There's this hole, there's that hole. There's a very wise, insightful description of all these different personalities that said something that he didn't agree with. And then he finally accepted that there's no need for discussion because I know Ramachandra has already accepted him. Because it's his nature. Someone wants to take shelter, you give him shelter. So here's a little bit from the Yuddha Kanda section of Ramayana. There's the Sanskrit for this verse. Now, Hanuman, who was endowed with good sanskaras and was the best of advisors, spoke words that were smooth, meaningful, sweet, and laghu, light or brief or eloquent. And then he gave his reasons why the buckets had holes in it, what other people were advising. And there's nothing really to discuss because Ramchandra has already accepted him. And Ram confirmed, yes, it's true. I've already accepted him. He was doing what a leader will do, ask opinions, but he had already accepted him. He said, even if Ravana himself came, he won't. If Ravana himself came and asked for shelter, I'd immediately give him, after all he's done, stealing Sita and this and that, I'd give him shelter. So Vibhishan is deserving of shelter. So I accept him. And then this very important, anyone who even once utters this statement, I take shelter of you, forever I protect them. It's a very important teaching in Ramayana. It's part of the sadachar, the good character, good conduct. Now, winding up, we're nearly completed. Every day, every day, every day. It's not always a calamity. There's something, but it's not every day a calamity. And there are different challenging circumstances in life. So what do you do on a day-by-day challenges of life come in your way? And what's your good conduct when that happens? So here's a very nice painting or depiction, is an AI graphic design. Ramchandra's sitting there. He's gotten word of Hanuman has returned. Sita is considering to give up her body, give up her life, if not rescued in 1 month. He doesn't know how to get across the ocean. There's no apparent means to do that. Bharata, his brother, has taken a vow, if you don't return in 14 years, I'll enter into fire. He's feeling intense separation from Sita, and he's sitting down and doing his sadhana, worshipping the personality of Godhead. Because he's setting an example, because he's Maryada Purushottama. He's the personality of Godhead, but he's setting an example of proper conduct for a devotee of the Lord. Almost done. There's a final little episode. Back in Ayodhya, after Kaikeyi, persuaded by Manthara to ban Ram for 14 years, and your son, Bharata, when he returns back, he'll become the king. When Bharata came back, he's looking for Ram, his beloved brother. He can't find Ram. He can't find Lakshman. What's going on? And he went to see his mother, and his mother said, oh, didn't you hear the good news? You're going to become the king. What? Say it again. You're going to become the king. Your father has promised that you'll become the king. And hurry, you should make all arrangements to sit on the throne and get anointed as the king of the world, the emperor of Ayodhya. What? And he was so upset with his mother. Many things happened. He took a vow. Not only I'm not going to become king, but I'm going to bring Ram back, and he'll become king. My mother. So he set off with a whole group of people with him to find somewhere in the forest Ramchandra and Lakshman and Sita. And one of the first places he came across was the hermitage of Bharadraj Muni. And here comes Bharata with a bunch of soldiers. He's not wearing shoes. Notice, he's in his bare feet coming before the sage, Bharadraj Muni. And Bharadraj Muni is suspicious. Or he speaks as if he's suspicious and says, what brings you here? How nice to see you. I hope you haven't come to do harm to your elder brother, Lord Ramachandra. And Bharata grasps his head and says, oh, what misfortune has come to me. I've only come for one purpose, is to bring Ramchandra back, and you're considering that I've come to harm him? Oh, what have I done to cause this misfortune to come upon me? And he was so sad that others would think that he would have that kind of motivation. And Bhardraj embraced him and said, I was just testing you. I know what your purpose is. And here's where you can find him. You go to Chitrakoot Mountain, and that's where he is. And you cross the river and just that place, and you'll find him. And may you be successful. May you bring him back, and he can rule in Ayodhya. When he finally, we're about to end, when he finally reached Chitrakoot, he pleaded, he cried, he tried this, he tried that, he tried the other thing, he tried the front door, he tried the back door, he tried the window, he tried the chimney, he tried everything he could, and the answer was no. Our Father has given his word, and my upholding the word of our Father is my life and soul. You become the king. And that was the other half. I'm banished, and you become the king. He was checkmated, poor Bharata. So then he had plan B. Plan B was, here's shoes. And you place your feet upon these shoes, and I'll return to Ayodhya, place the shoes on the throne, and your shoes will rule Ayodhya for 14 years. And I shall live in a hut outside Ayodhya. I shall survive only on fruits and roots. My hair will be matted. At the end of that time, if you do not return, then I shall enter blazing fire. So that was the other side of the burning stick on two ends, and Ramchandra's in the middle. Difficulty. And this is our slide showing there's Bharata holding the shoes of Ram, thinking of Ram and Sita, getting their blessings just by remembrance. And finally, they returned. This is Bharata offering the shoes to Ram to step on so he could place them on the throne. So back to our initial point. The initial point is etiquette in the circle of Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord. There's proper conduct and there's improper conduct. And neglect of proper conduct is improper conduct. So we honor proper conduct. And what is it? What does it look like? So we're going to hear something more at tomorrow evening. But the principle is Shastra. There's Guru, Sadhu, Shastra that give us guidance, and ultimately there's Shastra. That's why I chose to take pastimes from Shastra to give us some indication of what's proper conduct, what's sadachar, what's Vaishnava etiquette. Because you can't get a better example than Lord Ramchandra. He's Maryada Purushottama. So let's see. We have a little bit of time. See if there's some discussion. And our host and hostess, you've got a lot of friends. Yeah. Well done. Well done. Any comments or questions? Over here.
This is a question from Rochana Mataji, Nepal. So her question is, we've been hearing from you how to show respect and the orders of respect. It is also equally important to receive respect gracefully. As practicing sadhakas, we often become recipients of respect and appreciation, deserving or undeserving. I've heard and understand that we should acknowledge the respect and appreciation we receive and not negate it, and also acknowledge the givers of service, that is Guru and Krishna, and offer the results to them, what are the other important considerations to keep in mind to receive respect properly?
Nice question. I mean, along with respect, a starting point of Vaishnava conduct is humility. Amanitvam adambitvam from Bhagavad Gita. Humility and pridelessness. So pride is it sticks, and pridelessness is it doesn't stick. Someone offers some appreciation or respect, it just goes right through you to the source of where the person is honoring something, that the thing they're honoring, where did it come from? Came from your teachers or the teachings, or from Krishna ultimately, from great souls who trained me in such. It's a little bit like what Jamuna said. It's a teacher-student relationship, and there's layers and layers and layers of sweetness and mystery in all of that. But one can't enter in it if there's pride or lack of humility. So that's another something. A principle is humility. And so when some respect does come, or some honor, or some something, who owns it? You don't own it. Those who gave you that something that's being respected, they own it. It goes to them. Respect goes to them. There's a humility tendency where somebody is being respected, they say, no. And no, it depends on where the no goes, but it's not. It should bounce. It's just transfer it to the right person. For the person that's asking this question, a very helpful place for this reader or this person to go is Brihat Bhagavatamrita Part 1, where Narada Muni is sent by many brahmanas to find out, to explore, to come back and report to them who's the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And he goes here and goes there and goes there. And each time he goes someplace, it's by referral to someone who said, no, so-and-so, they're the recipient of mercy. And he goes there and sees that they're recipient of mercy. And he says, oh, you're such a recipient of mercy. You're giving praise and respect. And they say, I'm not the recipient of mercy. Here's my disqualification. If you want to find someone qualified and receiving the mercy of the Lord, go to such and such. So he goes to such and such, and so it keeps going and going and going and going. It's transferring that appreciation to someone more deserving. In the case of what Jamuna did, she was trained by Prabhupada, and she didn't boast about how she was trained. She just explained this was the training, and this was the behavior, and it was pleasing. This is what Prabhupada wanted, so we just did what Prabhupada wanted. And then you learn how to do that. That's the classic, or a feature of a classic teacher-student relationship, and you'll learn so much just from that. So that's some examples of response to this question. Anybody else? Comments or questions? Hare Krishna. You got to hit the right button. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj, for beautiful stories. It's nectar to hear all these stories.
Can you adjust the volume? Go ahead. Keep going. Your voice is soft, so they're going to turn the volume up on the speaker.
It's very nectar to hear all these stories, Maharaj, from you. The The question is, actually, I think it starts with respect, you said, and there are a lot of stories we are hearing, and Rama stories. To give that level of respect, maybe we should have some other qualities and where we need to improve.
Your question is similar to her question. Or my response to your question is similar to my response to her question, which is humility.
We wanted to hear more on that from you, bro.
Next time when I come, somebody remind me, and we can speak on that topic. There's a whole seminar on that topic, like 4-part seminar. There's a lot to say on that topic. So, but it's a principle, the principle, with elaboration on the principle. Who am I? The spirit soul. What's the spirit soul? Fragmental, tiny speck of spiritual potency, spiritual energy, para prakriti, that's part of the para Brahman, part of the supreme living entity. And I'm small, and there's one who's really big. And the business of the small, the part, is to serve the whole. Humility, but not cosmetic. Hang your head down and feel bad about yourself. But humility, where I know who I am. And that's an essential part of the Vaishnava etiquette. In all circumstances, I'm tiny. I'm meant to serve the Supreme, the source of everything. That's who I am. That's what I do. I've forgotten that, and so I'm busy with other things, like trying to be enjoyer of God's property. But that's not my rightful position. My rightful position is His property, and He's the enjoyer of His property. So it's humility. And service, second, service mood. Always, always, always. Constitutionally, I'm the servant of the source, the servants of the master. And that's happiness. When the servant tries to be the master, it's a problem. Because there's already somebody that's the master. In the world, the servant can become the master, but in spiritual reality, the servant never becomes the master. The master is the master. Now, the master is very kind. Krishna is very kind, and he becomes subservient to his devotee. But we don't want Krishna to become subservient to us. We want to serve in all circumstances. Okay? Humility and service mood.
Yes, Maharaj. If any time permits, if you can tell me one small example or any small story, Maharaj.
I've been doing small stories. Give the microphone to somebody else.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. You had a slide which was showing this instruction, do not blame the instrument of your karma.
I remember.
Yes. So that is a very, played a very, very important role, that instruction in my life, even still now. Because when it was like maybe 2008 or 9, I don't remember. I was new to this, that time, coming to, so it was in New Vrindavan or somewhere, I remember. That's the first time I heard this one was, you were communicating this instruction in one of the classes, and I was new that time, and I was like, this is like totally an eye-opening for me, and but I couldn't able to understand that point at that time, but that one got stuck in my mind. And later on, after a couple of years later, and I heard the same thing from you in St. Louis, and that one was, again, and then you said a story related with that, with an example, like Srila Prabhupada was, there was a temple president who took the money, and don't blame the instrument of your karma, something related with that. You mentioned that story, which was stuck in my mind, and that I took it I don't know, it just went into my mind. And then later on in my life, eventually, in my personal life and in my work or with the devotee relationship, in everything, I was applying that instruction. It was by Krishna's mercy. I was remembering. Usually, you hear and then you keep forgetting. But this one was stuck in my mind. I don't know why. But that was very helpful in my life personally, because I want to really very grateful to you and to Srila Prabhupada. This one, that's why I just want to bring this point, because I had written 4 or 5 things what happened because of following that one instruction is helped me to accept my own, anything happens with any relationship or with work or with the devotee relationship or even that family. So this one I usually take as an instruction, and then I started to apply it, helped me to accept my own thing and helped me to bring in the humility point, and then my conscience is not get contaminated. Main thing is, and I was appreciative of why Prabhupada was having the word Krishna conscious. I was just thinking about that, and that helped my conscience to correct and brings that little whatever I could able to bring that humility, not to blame anybody, and then that helped my mind stress to relieve my mind stress, which gives a little peace to my mind, and which that hatedness was not within me. It was not coming before. Otherwise, immediately I blame others.
I'm going to slow you down. You're on a roll, but I'm going to slow you down.
So that hatedness was not coming, which was bothering the mind and which was affecting the health also. So this was helping my mind and health at the same time.
You want another lesson?
Yes, Maharaj.
You sure?
Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
You sure? You sure?
Sure, Maharaj.
Okay. Just as you said this true confession thing just now, another devotee shared with me a lesson that they learned many years ago about forgiveness. And the same devotee heard it, but they found themselves not able to forgive. And it was over, certain type of things and da-da-da-da-da-da. And now, 20-something, 30 years later, they get it. It takes a while to take, very fundamental things to go in, and then it becomes your life. That's another one. Forgiveness.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention that. So that acceptance
okay, but
helped
now I'm
me.
reminding you. Don't. There's these very simple points. Sometimes they stick with you, like you mentioned, and sometimes they bounce or they roll. They stay for 5 days and then they go somewhere else. Steadiness in bhakti means one lives one's life by these principles, and hearing Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, helps cleanse so that remembrance stays with you. So continue in the process of hearing and chanting, and service, right? Service to the Vaishnavas, because these activities are cleansing to the soul. The coverings become cleansed. The original consciousness of the soul is restored. It's very simple, just through sound. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anybody else? Back in the back.
Haribol Maharaj, in one of the slides you mentioned where everyone was trying to give their suggestion and something, but Lord Hanuman was just sitting there and he already knew by his heart what was there and what Sri Rama has already decided. how can we become like Hanuman, just
Uh-huh.
accepting the...
Follow the example of. How do you become? You follow the example of. So we're not Hanuman, but we can't become Hanuman because he's one of a kind. But we can follow the example of. You become the servant of those who you're trying to follow the example of. You follow in the footsteps of those who are exemplary personalities. No, he not only knew what Ram wanted, but the part that I said, I'll say it again, very lengthy, he pointed out where the other ideas were faulty. Not to vilify or criticize, but just to show it doesn't hold water. They're not substantial because, and this, and with all reason and logic, and so he pointed to, and they accepted those elders. They were his elders. They accepted his wisdom. Now, how do you get wisdom? That's how do you become Hanuman-like? Follow Hanuman. And what's the emblem of service? Anything. Service to Ram. We're all serving someone, but service to Ram, and service to Ram, and service to Ram. And he's still doing it. Ram said, stay behind. When it was time to leave, he told Hanuman, you stay behind and sing my glories. So that's what he does. Until the end of the universe, Hanuman's doing what Ram said. Follow the example. Okay.
Haribol Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaji. My question is basically, how can we respect those who harm others? Like if we see that they are tormenting people, like suppose Hitler and stuff.
I got it. The person that expressed to me this thing of forgiveness said they finally got it. They shared this with me. And so there's the saying, you've heard the saying, I'm sure, hate the sin, not the sinner. The respect goes to the soul, not to the behavior. The behavior is not the person. The behavior has everything to do with the modes of nature, impelling someone to be this or that, to be kind or to be harsh, or to be, vicious, or whatever. So the behavior is one thing, the person is the other thing. So respect goes to the person, with the soul. And then, this is important. If you have an attitude, if you or I or any one of us have an attitude of respect, even for a person that's bad, there's the potency, the potential to elevate that person from the lower mode to a higher mode to the highest mode. That other person can be transformed if there's the principle of respect for the soul that's within. The potential of the soul to be Krishna's servant. And that, it doesn't negate being able to discern this is to be done, this is not to be done. This is bad, this is hurtful, this is cruel, this is vicious. You can discern the behavior or the speech, what category it falls into, but that doesn't change the position of respect. When you start to think, let's just say it again a little bit more. When you start to think that way towards others, what happens? You have freedom. You have freedom in the quality of goodness. And when you have freedom in the quality of goodness, you have then the capacity to see options of how you can act or behave or speak to that person in a way that can be elevating them in the position of service to their consciousness. Now, in some cases, it's finishing them. I mean, that has to be done sometimes by Kshatriyas. But, in case we're not Kshatriyas, that option is for Kshatriyas. But we, even in that, the Kshatriya should be the well-wisher of that person. That, lift them from that lower to a higher position. Got it?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, and it's to do means getting freed from the modes of nature, and we're our own conditioning, not their conditioning. The problem is not over there; it's over here. To bring about elevation of others, it's over here, not over there. Even a bad person.
Okay. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Yes, you have something online. Looks like.
This question is from Anusha Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Is there any references on how Vibhishana maintained his position of devotion
Yeah.
irrespective of bad association he
Yeah.
had with his brothers
Yeah.
for a long time?
Yeah. Lal Gopal knows the answer. No, I'll give the answer. I'll give the answer. But he and I both know the answer. Two things. It's very simple. His father, before he became the father, before Vibhishan became the son, he foretold Kaikashi would have one son who would be virtuous. His words, the Brahmana's words, would become true because he spoke them. And the second is when all the three sons were born, they all underwent great austerity for long periods of time. The austerities of Vibhishan were very extensive. And Brahma came and asked what benediction you'd like. I'd like the benediction that I'll never depart from virtue. So it was granted. And there's more details. But the benediction of his father and the benediction of Lord Brahma, he was sustained and maintained by that. And he never departed from virtue. Even in the midst of, bad association and, Ravana is your brother, my God. He never departed. He was protected. Yes, online. This is going to be our last question.
This is Amara Mataji's question.
Okay. Naperville.
From the
Part 2. She heard this already. Go ahead.
from the story of King Nriga, we understand that his intentions were not bad.
That's right.
And we also know that Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana
That's right.
and accepts our intentions. But we also hear that goodness is not good enough. How to understand these different aspects?
Well, to understand different aspects, you need intelligence. And if you don't have intelligence, you're not going to understand different aspects. So how do you get intelligence? Super soul. And how do you get intelligence from super soul? Become purified. How do you get purified? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. The process of bhakti, starting with hearing and chanting. So now, the different aspects, Krishna's Bhava Grahi Janardana. He understands the intention, but he doesn't supersede. If a Brahmana gives a curse, He doesn't supersede the Brahmana's curse. The Brahmana got upset. The Brahmana shouldn't do like what he did. You gave my cow to another Brahmana. I curse you. You become a lizard. Doesn't sound like a Brahmana. It sounds like somebody's lost it. But Krishna didn't interfere. He just made the course correction. And he demonstrated to everyone his bhavagrahi janardana. He lifted the lizard out of the well and transformed him back to the Brahmana that he was, wiser. The king, not the Brahmana that he was, the king. King Nriga. So Krishna, in one sense, Krishna's got a tough service. He has to, he sees upadrashta and he permits. But when somebody wants bad stuff, it's uncomfortable. How are you going to permit bad stuff? But people can't do bad stuff without permission, the sanction, upadrashta, anamanta. So there's consequences not to Krishna, but to the person who does bad stuff. And Krishna's like the sun, just shines. Krishna gives permission for us to be in the material world, even if it's not a nice place. And he gives us lessons. It's not a nice place. And we still hang on in the material world. He's sanctioning misery. Why does he do that? Because we want it. We don't want the misery. We want the independent enjoyment program. That's what we want. But independent enjoyment has its consequences. So it's to learn. So that's how you balance these. That's her question. We're going to end. Thank you all for coming. And we'll see you again, maybe we'll see you again tomorrow evening for part 4. And the part 4 is same theme, Vaishnava etiquette demonstrated in Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata by exemplary persons. So the purpose of all of this, Scripture gives us light into this realm of darkness that we're situated. The material world is a realm of darkness. And particularly in Kali Yuga, it's dark. So the Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata give us light in that realm of darkness, so we can know what real standards are. That's the purpose. So I hope you can come. If you can't, it's okay. It's all being, as far as I know, it's all being recorded. Yeah, so you can check it out later if you miss it. We'll see you tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.